At the Center for Dharma Studies, my research focus is on the constructive eco-theology of Krishna Bhakti. That is to say, understanding who Krishna is for us today, in contemporary times, and how Krishna consciousness can address our current ecological needs. Today, all religions are in need of contemporary interpretations because of the novelty and scope of our current environmental crisis. I believe it's the duty, the dharma of spiritual paths to restrict humanity's incursions against the natural world, which is, after all, God's beloved creation. And I also seek to show how the revelations of Krishna Bhakti are uniquely suited to that task. There are a variety of ways that Krishna Bhakti celebrates all aspects of life, both spiritually and worldly. We might see Krishna Bhakti as unique because in addition to providing an intellectually based environmental ethic, it can also provide us with an emotional and spiritual connection to conservation. As Bhaktas, we seek to do only actions that are pleasing to Krishna. It follows then that we must seek to help all beings who are part and parcel of the Lord. This ethos is so important that it's enshrined in our Mangala Charlana prayer. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kritpasindubhyaevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Here in this verse, devotees are lauded because they're like Pavana, that is to say, like the wind that purifies all beings who are born into samsara, with their Kripa Sindhu, with their ocean-like compassion, and their Vanchakalpataru, tree-like desire to help others. This desire to serve both Krishna and other beings comes directly from understanding ourselves as servants to Krishna, who is the divine enjoyer of all of our spiritual actions, Otaram Yanyas Tapasam, and a friend of all creation, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. This is by Bhagavad Gita 5:29. The metaphor of the Vanchakalpatarubhyascha verse is a naturalistic one, and by implication, we are aspiring as Vaishnavas to be compassionate and caring to the natural world, like the natural world is to us. So it makes sense that we should reciprocate the spirit of service back to nature, especially since nature, as a network of embodied beings, is dear to Krishna. In multiple ways, the Bhagavad Gita speaks of how our status as servants to the divine obligates us to act for the benefit of Krishna's worldly creation. We're even given a term, loka samgraha, that could rightfully mean environmental protection. This is by Bhagavad Gita 3:25. In this verse, the vidvans, the wise ones, should act in such a way that is asaktaha, that is to say, unattached to selfish pursuits. We might understand this today as modern consumerism. These vidvans, these wise ones, act with the desire to sustain the world, loka samgraha. Here the Bhagavad Gita term, loka samgraha, sustaining or protecting the world, must be taken in the modern age to imply environmental conservation. As I stated before, Krishna Bhakti posits what we might understand as an emotional environmentalism. As a Krishna Bhakta, I believe that ultimately the purpose of life is to find our way back to Krishna by intensifying and cultivating devotional love. Krishna desperately, Dharvada, wants us to act in a loving relationship to him. Ishtosi me dardam iti, by Bhagavad Gita 1864. And he wants us to realize his promise that we, and by extension all creatures, are his beloveds. Pratijane priyosime, 1865. And because Krishna loves this world and all souls, suhridam sarva bhutanam, embodied as humans or otherwise, we're instructed to love all beings, sarva bhutahi te rataha, in our effort to return to Godhead. Mame vaishasi satyante. This goes beyond a philosophical requirement or a logical assent and implies engaging our emotions. If humanity is to act, then like the Bhakta, humanity will act from the heart more than from the mind. Change requires change of heart. That's how we behave individually, it's how we behave collectively. We found this in the evolvement strategies of the environmental and animal rights movements. Emotion impels us. Therefore, strategically speaking at least, ecological protection carries an emotional mandate And conservation requires respect, even love, for ecology, or by our terms as devotees, the love for the world of embodied souls in relationship to our loving God. To construct this type of eco-theology a little more specifically by Bheda Tattva, we love the interconnectedness of life as the very manifestation of Krishna Shaktis. But the qualified separation of our Vedantic position allows the bhaktas to cultivate our love and emotional connection not only to the divine ecosystem, but also to love each and every individuated being within that system. This understanding not only sacralizes the body of ourselves, others, and ecosystems, but also intensifies our emotional connection to them. Humanity will protect that which we love. And Krishna Bhakti provides us a path to cultivate that love. Radhanath Swami Maharaj quotes Mother Teresa of Calcutta in his book, who says, "The greatest problem in the world is hunger. Not hunger of the stomach, but hunger of the heart. And it's the heart that must be fed if we are to protect the natural world." However, for those amongst us who are more swayed by the mind than the heart, the Vedantic position of Krishna Bhakti lends itself nicely to the construction of an environmental ethic based on respecting the rights of the natural world, based on the qualified individuality of the diverse beings. If you think about it, the relationship between the ecosystems, species, and individual creatures is one of Bheda Tattva. That is, distinctiveness qualified by relational interconnectedness. More succinctly, a creature is both individuated from Bheda and non-separated from ha-Bheda, their ecosystem. This is a sort of achintya tattva, paradoxical relationship. This is exactly the relationship between Krishna and the souls of this who inhabit this world. But perhaps more importantly, from a conservationist perspective, the separateness, the individuality of each being mandates that they have rights for the same reason cited by the modern animal rights movement. Each being cannot be seen exclusively as a means to an end for another being. Each being has their own purpose. In spiritual terms, each being has their own purpose in relationship to our loving God. As such, Krishna Bhakti will allow for both the emotional connection to all beings and the philosophical grounds to respect the rights of these beings. Both of these, the intellectual and the emotional, must be accounted for if any system of conservation is to be effective. And beyond that, Krishna Bhakti not only substantiates our emotional and intellectual commitments to conservation, but also contextualizes our relationships to the natural world as being fundamentally spiritual, instilling the urgency of conservation with the importance of ultimacy. Conservation is necessary and is consistent with the ultimate purpose of our lives. Therefore, Krishna Bhakti has the potential to save the natural world. So this is our journey, finding our way back to Godhead through devotional love and bringing others with us, including other species that occupy our ecosystems. For the Gita in 1868-69 tells us emphatically, Ya idam paramam guhyam mad bhakteshva vidasyanti bhakti mayi param kartva man me vaishtyatya asamshaya nacha tasmat manusheshu kaschin me priyakartama bhabita nachame tasmat anyaha priyataro bhuvi. By this verse, Ya idam paramam guhyam, those who serve Krishna's purpose by spreading and applying Krishna Bhakti are both Priyakartama and Priyatara. That means they are the most beloved by Krishna. By this revelation, compassionate action is mandated if we are to properly realize our loving relationship with God. Therefore, environmental activism is devotional cultivation, perhaps as essential as other forms of devotional activities. We are repeatedly told in the Bhagavad Gita, stand up and fight. Now the Dharma Kshetra on which we strive includes the protection of the natural world. But we need to work together and we need the help of others. Bhagavad Gita 4:34 also tells us, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadakshanti te gnanam yaninas tattvadarishana. That is to say, to be effective, we must seek out great teachers who are doing this work. And pranipatena pariprashnena and sevaya. That is to say, learn from them and help them in their efforts. Beyond that, the Gita tells us these great souls, these shrishtas, will change the world. Yad yad chardati shrishtas tata devetablo janaha. Sayad pramanam krudute lokastadanuvartate. That which the shrishtas, the best people amongst us, do, so also the world will follow. Tata devetablo janaha. Sayad pramanam krudute, that standard which the shrishta sets, the entire world will follow. Lokastadanuvartate. And that shrishta might very well be a committed humanitarian, an environmental spiritual activist, and guru. The life of His Holiness, Radhanath Swami, demonstrates to us what standard we should all follow. And we do well to uphold his vision, one that I might characterize, at least in part, as being a vision of Krishna Bhakti eco-theology. And by following such great teachers, as promised by the infallible words of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, we can see how the world will proceed to a more sustainable, loving, and spiritually fulfilling relationship with Krishna and all of the beings who are his beloved. Thank you, and Hare Krishna.
It is my honor to now welcome His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Jnananjanachalakhaya chakshurunmilitam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamini. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hari. I'm very honored, very. Huh?
So what do you say to your
This time I've worn jewelry. Are you ready to hear me? Can you hear me? I'm deeply honored to be with all of you. I'm feeling very special, a little me with one semester of a junior college, speaking among all these esteemed scholars. My very special gratitude to the president of the Graduate Theological Union of Berkeley, Reese Ottervelt, the Vice President, Mira and Ajay, Director of Holiness Studies, Rita Sherma, to our beloved scholar, friend, to each and every one of you, Vaisheshika Prabhu, the leader of our Bhakti Society in this part of America. I was asked to speak on Bhakti's relevance to the contemporary world. There's a place in northern India, not far from the city of Lucknow. To this day, it's a beautiful forest with ancient trees on the banks of the Gomati River. Thousands of years ago, great sages, yogis, pundits, Mahatmas, by the thousands, they gathered there for a very specific purpose. They were deeply concerned about the future of humanity and the world in this age of Kali. They inquired from their leader, Sutta Goswami, and the questions there are timeless. They could foresee the vulnerability of human society to fall prey to greed, arrogance, envy, anger, selfish passions, and countless illusions. They could see exploitation, hatred, killing, and deep suffering. And this pained them. The universal principle of it is one who is actually closer to God is paradukha dukkhi, which means another person's suffering is my suffering, and another person's happiness is my happiness. They weren't there to get their photos on the internet. They weren't there to make the scene. They were there because they felt an urgent need. And as spiritual leaders, it was their greatest responsibility to God and to the whole world to make a difference. Their question was, in this condition, where there is so much greed and exploitation and illusion, what is the solution? And they asked a simple question. There are many religious paths or dharmas, and many scriptures, and many philosophical works. What is the essence? Unless we understand the essence, even philosophies and religious paths could actually increase the arrogance and the greed and the illusion of this world. What is the prime duty for human beings? The answers to these questions comprise the 18,000 verses of the Bhagavad Purana. The answer begins with two simple verses. Savaipung san parodharmo yato bhaktir hokshaje ahoitaki aprati hata yayat prasidati. The supreme dharma, the essence of religion, of spirituality, of the responsibility of all human beings, is to awaken the love for the supreme truth, for God that is within all of us. To be an instrument of that love in whatever we do. Such loving service must be unmotivated by selfishness or arrogance, and uninterrupted by any changing circumstances, in order for it to bring real fulfillment to our true self. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojana Janayatya Shubhairagyam Jnanam Chakram. That the awakening of bhakti to the Supreme Being, to Vasudeva, is so deep that it naturally includes the perfection of the revelation of all knowledge and renunciation. Bhakti in Sanskrit means divine love. Bhakti yoga is the path that awakens that divine love. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great avatar of Sri Krishna, who appeared about 500 years ago, he exemplified and highlighted the true principles of bhakti. He spoke one beautiful teaching. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajya Kabulai Saravanadi Sudichiti Korye. That this prema, this bhakti, is inherent within every living being. By associating with people who have that love, who have awakened that love, and by chanting God's names, this love is awakened within our own hearts. And by his own example, he taught how we can break through all misconceptions of caste, of sex, of religion, of species, and see the true unity within all of us. because we're all coming from the same source. The definition of God in the Vedic literatures is the source of everything that exists. The Gita tells Aham Bija, that Krishna, or the Supreme Being, is the Supreme Father and Mother of all living beings. Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmane Gabhihastini Suni Chaiva Svabhakija Pandita Samadarsha. Today's world, we see so much strife, so much killing, so much envy, so much racism. And the tendency is either to follow those inclinations or to create some cosmetic, symptomatic remedy. But the Gita is going to the core of it. When we realize who we really are, Jivara Swarupoi Krishna Nityadas, eternal servants of the same God, eternal souls. When we realize our own nature, then we will appreciate every living being as a part of the one Supreme Soul. Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhutasana. Whether one is of one race or one sex or one religion, whether one is from a particular country or a species. Wherever there's life, life is sacred. Wherever there's life, there's a part of God. The Srimad Bhagavat says when you water the root of the tree, that water naturally goes to every part of the tree. To the branches, the leaves and the flowers. When we awaken this love within our hearts, it naturally extends to all beings. That is the greatest potential within all of us. And in that potential, each of us could really be a positive change in these troubled times. The disease of ignorance, the disease of greed and exploitation has always been there. And although the application of the principles of true Dharma may change over time, the principle of the cure is eternally the same. To know oneself. To awaken our true nature. To be an instrument of love. Anandamayo Vyashat. Everyone is looking for fulfillment. And that's why there's so many problems in the world. Because everyone's looking for pleasure. And everyone's trying to avoid that which interrupts our pleasure. What is our real pleasure? We must understand who we are, what our true nature is. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained, Jivara Swarupoi Krishna Nityadas, that we are all eternally servants of the one God, the all-attractive, all-beautiful God who he calls Krishna. To love is to serve. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught in the Path of Bhakti, the highest mukti, the highest liberation is praying, is the awakening of this ecstatic love. and it is expressed Samsiddhir Haritoshana, by serving in such a way that our Supreme Beloved is pleased. 51 years ago, my beloved Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he took a cargo ship for 38 days over several oceans and continents to come to America. And he taught these teachings of bhakti as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us to the whole world. And he used to cite from the Bhagavad Gita what he called the peace formula. A time when there's so much strife and conflict. And in our lifetime, was there ever a time when there's not strife and conflict? And as far as I've studied in world history, has there ever been a time when there's not strife or conflict? These are universal principles that are ageless. The Bhagavad Gita gives a simple formula. Bhoktaram jadyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhradam sarvabhutanam yatvamam shanti rich. Our dear friend Kojan was speaking some of these principles. That one can achieve true shanti or peace. One can connect again with that inner love that is our real essence, that we're all seeking. When one puts one's dharma, one's service to the Supreme as the heart of our life. Sarvaloka Maheshwara. Krishna tells in Gita, everything that exists is my property. Now in the school of bhakti, if everything is God's property, what is mine? Nothing is mine. Proprietorship means control. Just like I'm sitting on this chair. It's Ajay and Mira's chair. We may have skills, we may have intelligence, we may have money, we may have power, we may have fame, we may have a family. If it's mine, nothing can take it away. But by the power of time, everything will be taken away. This is not even my body. I'm occupying it for some time, but this is going to be taken away too. People are so greedy, trying to possess. Because wealth means power, and power inflates the ego. And the ego's nature is it is insatiable, can never be satisfied. People are fighting wars. People are so hateful and never really satisfied. Because the simple principle, nothing is mine. We are caretakers of divine property. Just last year, I was invited to speak in Dubai at a 7-star hotel. In the ballroom. And I was just looking at the carpet I was walking on. It probably cost more than our entire Eagle Village. And whoever was there was either a billionaire or a millionaire. It was really luxurious. There was gold, different types Dubai introduced me. And he said, Swamiji has come to this most luxurious place in the entire world, and he's going to speak to millionaires and billionaires, and the subject we've given him is simple living. Even I'm really wondering what he's going to say. And then I had to go up to the podium. And according to this principle of Gita, that we are all caretakers. We're caretakers on behalf of our Supreme Beloved. And therefore, our dharma, our responsibility is to utilize whatever we have in harmony with the will of our beloved. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat. The Supreme Being is supremely compassionate. It's within the heart of every living being who cares about us. Whatever we have, to utilize it with compassion is the highest dharma. Because that's what pleases the Supreme. So I explained to this audience that just 3 days ago, before I was in that hotel, I said I was in the villages of Maharashtra, going to little huts and speaking to little widow ladies who had nothing. And now I'm speaking to all of you. What does it mean? Simple living. It doesn't mean living in a little hut in a village. It doesn't necessarily mean being a millionaire or billionaire. Those are all details.